Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. We have an incredible show lined up. We're going to get right to it. Less than a year ago, an independent lab found residues of over 21 toxic pesticides in baby food products sold at Target. But despite public outcry, the chain has actually not taken any action to address these issues. Here to discuss is returning guest Christine Padovan, author, respected advisor on toxicology, and founder of Paladina International. Thank you for joining us yet again, Christine.
My pleasure, Kimberly. And hi, Ethan. How are you guys doing?
Good. So can you talk about this particular lab test, the 21 pesticides found, 12 of which are actually considered highly hazardous? How is this possible in baby food?
Well, actually, what's interesting, Kimberly, is that this is not a new subject. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the news over the years, and especially over the last 15, 20 years. Gerber, which is a huge national baby food chain, has had the same issues with high levels of arsenic in their baby food. And basically, it's just because it's the source. Our vegetables and fruits are just so tainted. They just bring it in through the roots from the ground, especially in terms of the pesticides being used over the last 40, 50 years. Now we've been aware of it for so long. It is surprising that Target hasn't done more to, alleviate this kind of issue in their products.
I understand 8 of those 12 pesticides have already been banned in Europe. Can you talk briefly about the 3 main other types, the 3 main types, I should say, of chemicals that were found in baby food?
So you've got something here that is called, interestingly enough, you've got glyphosates that many people have been very aware of as something that's in other products as well, other food packaging, things like that. Then there's something called neonics. And we've talked about this other one before. It's the chlorpyrifos. And those all cause, basically they cause a lot of nerve issues. They cause nerve issues in the insects to make them die so they don't taint our, food products. But at the same time, they also get still put into our food when the vegetables absorb it. And then, we're harvesting it and then it's going into the baby food. And that's a big thing when we're seeing a lot of autism in babies in the last 15, 20 years.
I don't understand how some of these chemicals can make their way into baby food, and the Food and Drug Administration, they're complicit in this apparently. So poisoning our babies, so then I guess Big Pharma has lifelong clients, but they're causing heart defects, brain defects, and as you said, autism in skyrocketing numbers.
Right.
Why are they not being held accountable?
Well, it's interesting that the European Union is more on top of the concern for the health of their citizens. And what we need to do is we really need to be knocking more on the door of the EPA, going to their websites, doing much larger petitions. Of course, you see this one from the environmental earth organizations, trying very, very hard to make the public very aware of this issue and trying to get these chemicals rebanned out of our usage, and then clearing our soils, and then obviously clearing our food and not having these toxins be absorbed into baby food and our other food sources as well.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Christine Padovan after this. You are watching American Medicine Today.
I went to Dr. Bonati and he went ahead and looked at my pictures. He told me, you have pain here, you have pain here. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd been to others, but he was a doctor that didn't want to fillet my back open like a fish and do like open spine surgery because everybody else wanted to do that and I was not having it. The anesthesiologist who was working with me, I was like having a conversation with this guy, and then I was watching on the monitor as Dr. Bonati is fixing my back. I really felt like I was in good hands.
Bonati succeeds where others fail. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. We're returning to our discussion with Christine Padovan.
What's the half-life of these chemicals in the soil? So as you just said, the EPA gets involved, and I guess, they would probably have to mandate digging up all the farmers' fields and this and that. Any idea how long these chemicals last in the soil, even if they were banned from use, so moving forward after resoiling,
right? We're talking,
is it still there?
You could still have, I'd say, a ground shelf life of between 10 to 15 years. But there's actually a quicker way to get these toxins out of the soil, and that's planting hemp, actually having farmers plant hemp plants in between their crops in absorbing that, and actually going back to something very natural, planting lavender in between rows of our produce will help to keep insects away. We need to start going back to all these natural solutions in keeping pests and insects off our crops versus poisoning the ground.
What has Target's reaction been, or lack thereof?
Well, I think it is very surprising that Target really hasn't gotten on the balls with other national chains such as Walmart in, getting this food source off the shelf, these particular brands, and asking for more forensic testing at the raw source, taking these food items and then seeing, okay, this one is a little bit too high with toxins. And yes, again, that does cost money. So they do need to start producing or purchasing more organic sources, at least for now, until we clear our farms of all these major toxins that have been seeped into the ground for years.
What can you tell any parents who may have fed their babies these foods? Is there anything they can give their children to try and start a detox?
Yes, absolutely. I actually did a video a few years ago about this baby food issue that, periodically every couple of years comes into the news. And a big thing parents can do for their babies is put bay leaf water, and we have this great recipe that we give to the public. We have this for free, okay, on our websites and on our Rumble channel. Adding bay leaf water to your baby's baby food or their formula is a fantastic way, because bay leaves are high in glutathione, and that will very gently and safely remove any chemicals and heavy metals out of your baby's body so that it will prevent future health issues down the road.
What else can consumers do to try to avoid these type of chemicals? Is it just buying organic, or is there something else that they could be doing?
Well, they definitely could be taking reduced glutathione supplements to keep anything out of their system. It's the same thing for teenagers and adults as well. Growing organic in their own backyard. Clear it, what you're just saying, Ethan, clearing your own soil and growing your own. And avocado, grow some organic avocado. That's also very high in glutathione. Bay leaf water, eating more organic avocado, taking reduced glutathione will keep anyone healthy.
Well, that's great news. Thank you so much, Christine Padovan, for being on the program. Respected author, advisor on toxicology, and founder of Paladina International. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Take great care. Well, that's all the time we have for this segment. We'll have more after the break. You are watching American Medicine Today.
My name is Erich Perry from Paducah, Kentucky. I experienced a bad fall on a stairwell and instantly began having lower back pain and leg pain, but didn't really know what it was. It was all the way down to my toes. I found myself stumbling often. It was affecting my sleep. It was affecting my ability to concentrate and perform my duties at work, my everyday life. The quality of life was affected.
Erich went to a doctor near his home seeking a solution.
He prescribed gabapentin and a number of other drugs that one by one I would try. It only affected my ability to concentrate at work. So they weren't really the solution. They didn't put more than a slight dent in the pain. I went to physical therapy. They taught me some stretches. Really nothing solved the problem. It just took the edge off slightly.
Despite the lack of improvement, Erich continued to see his doctor, hoping he would finally arrive at a solution for his pain.
For several years, I continued to visit the doctor twice a year as my appointment was made, because I thought I was kept hoping there was going to be some kind of solution. The only option that was presented was surgery, but the diagnosis was wrong. So the surgery they described to me was for my thoracic spine, and the way they described it was that they would go through the front, collapse a lung, break ribs, move everything out of the way. So naturally, that wasn't the direction I wanted to go. So I continued to see the doctor and continued to search the internet for other options. But the options I was searching for, I wasn't searching for the right option because I had the wrong diagnosis. It wore on me, I would say, daily. And I came to just accept it as my life, unfortunately, but continued to search. And at some point, I had something pop up. I think it was probably on a social media page, and likely due to my continuous searching, you know how they know what you're looking for. Bonati Spine Institute came up, and I, of course, looked into that and watched some of the reviews and read, and it seemed like a sign from God, honestly. It was just, I couldn't believe that was an option. I clicked on a link that said contact us, and the next day someone from Bonati Spine Institute called me, which I was just thrilled that it happened so fast. We talked through what I would need to do to have a consultation. They directed me to my local doctor who needed to provide that authorization. I got a call back from someone at Bonati Spine a few days later that said they got the approval, and we set up my on-site consultation. And it just moved very quickly from there.
After meeting with Dr. Bonati, he knew he made the right decision in traveling to Hudson, Florida, and scheduled his targeted Bonati Spine procedures.
Well, Dr. Bonati came in and looked at my x-rays, of which I had several there first before he saw me. And I would say it was 2 or 3 minutes before he told me what was wrong. My diagnosis was bulging discs, L4, 5, and 3, 4, and without any hesitation told me what needed to happen. I felt very sure that was the place I needed to be, in my own heart.
The exclusive Bonati Spine procedures are performed incrementally using conscious IV sedation. This technique dramatically reduces the risk of infection and allows the patient to communicate with their surgeon when their pain is eliminated while they're on the operating table.
I do remember the surgeon talking. I remember the anesthesiologist talking to me. Very little feeling from the surgeon, from the process. A couple of little pinches is all I felt. So I was much more at ease once I realized I didn't feel a thing. I was very nervous about being awake through such an event, but it was very peaceful.
Erich was overwhelmed by how quickly he was able to be up and walking so soon after his Bonati Spine procedures, pain-free.
And when I sat up and stood on the floor and walked the hall, there was absolutely it's moving. There was no pain. Instantly. I walked a short hallway with the nurse there and walked back. And I think I was supposed to sit back down at that point. But I walked again and came back again and felt no pain in my left leg. I was amazed. Going forward from there was no pain post-op. Even the incision, which was just taped, there were no visible stitches, so there's barely a visible scar. There was no pain there. Everything from the time I left Bonati forward, my life has been different. I now sleep through the night. I can enjoy my daily activities without pain, such as walking my dogs, riding my bike. I can concentrate at work because I'm not distracted by the pain. My life has changed for the better, 100%.
To see more stories of recovery just like this, search for the Bonati Spine Institute on YouTube, Rumble, Apple's App Store, Google's Play Store, Roku, and Amazon's Fire TV. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. Nearly a year ago, President Trump was almost assassinated, and the official government story is that an untrained college student was the lone gunman. Well, a new documentary is exposing that story is not true. Joining us to discuss is J.D. Wilcox, the filmmaker behind Who Shot Trump? Well, that's a great question. Welcome to the show, JD.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
You had a very personal reaction for a reason behind making this film. Can you delve into that?
Yeah, I've been a documentary filmmaker for about 30 years. And about 10 years ago, I was in LAX airport in Terminal 3 when a crazed local gunman walked in and started shooting up the terminal. He shot and killed a TSA agent and then walked through the terminal shooting people indiscriminately. The TSA agents all fled and abandoned us passengers in the terminal. That story eventually just sort of disappeared because the government screwed up and the LAPD screwed up and let this guy get in there. And when I saw what happened to Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, I started to get the same feeling that this story was not going to make the government look good, and eventually they would just want it to go away. And that's what happened. And when I realized that's what was going to happen, I went there to Butler and investigated myself.
I've seen several videos and even clips from your film here, and it's fascinating. Let's talk about evidence of a cover-up. Why should we not, devil's advocate,
Sure.
Why should we not believe the government's message that that Crooks character was the gunman?
Well, the cover-up is really the easiest thing to prove. If you crack open the official Congressional Task Force report that was released on December last year, every single name of every Secret Service agent, every state police agent, every local law enforcement agent who was there that day, they're all redacted. You can't read one law enforcement person's name in the official report. So you can't cross-examine them. You can't question them. So that's step one. They don't even tell you who was involved. Step two, the government knows what I know. And I know there is insurmountable evidence of at least one additional gunman in addition to Crooks or whoever that was on the roof of AGR. But the government knows everything that I know, and they've said nothing for almost a full year. That's a cover-up.
I specifically remember, I forget how long it was before they cremated Thomas Crooks, but I know it happened pretty rapidly. And then I also remember seeing on the news, I don't know if it was the military or the FBI. Remember they were up there hosing down the roof,
Yes.
Cleaning off the blood, and
Yes.
I mean, there's DNA there. All the evidence. What's up with that?
So the assassination attempt happens on July 13th at approximately 6 p.m. The body sits on the roof for 15 hours. They don't remove the dead body from the roof until early the next day. Then the coroner takes the body away and does an autopsy. They refuse to release the coroner's report of the autopsy. On the 14th, the FBI agents go on the roof and hose it off and destroy all the DNA evidence that's on the roof. And then on the 23rd, I believe it is, of July, Crooks' body is released with the FBI's blessing and it's cremated. So not only can't we match DNA or prove the identity of that body now, the body itself doesn't exist anymore. Oh, and by the way, there were several bullet fragments in Crooks' body when it was cremated that were never removed. So we don't even know who shot Crooks. We know nothing. Really, we know nothing.
Why would someone like the Secret Service or the FBI, I think we all know this, they're complicit, but why would they want to cover up that attempt?
Well, the Secret Service question is easy. The Secret Service screwed up that day. Somehow they let an untrained 20-year-old college student who lives at home with his parents and is a registered Republican outsmart all of them. He not only tricked people, professional snipers, into looking the wrong way while he climbed up on the roof, but he shot 8 shots at a former president before anybody even knew he was there. The former director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Bonati, she came up with all kinds of outrageous excuses why they screwed up that day. None of those excuses hold water. So the Secret Service, it's easy to understand why they're covering up. The new FBI under Kash Patel, I don't think they've told him what I'm telling you. I don't think Kash Patel and Dan Bongino know what I'm telling you. So we're desperately trying to get this information to Trump. to the FBI and let them know that if I'm right, and I am, there's at least one additional shooter still out there. That means Trump is still in danger.
Yeah, well, the college student is certainly their patsy.
It's entirely possible that he's a patsy. I found at least one other place where the shot that hit President Trump could have come from. And I know for certain there's one bullet that didn't hit President Trump, but it didn't come from the roof of AGR. It's impossible. It's physically impossible. And I have overwhelming proof that that bullet did not come from AGR.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with J.D. Wilcox after this. You are watching American Medicine Today. Don't be screwed by lesser spine institutes who bait you with minimally invasive procedures, then switch to screws, rods, disc replacements, and hardware. At Bonati, no metal hardware fusions are ever used. Bonati invented the precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati Spine Procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. We're continuing our intriguing discussion with J.D. Wilcox.
Talk a little bit about the site mapping that you did, because I saw some graphics that were pretty impressive. And yeah. So again, you already touched upon it, but what evidence of a second shooter do you have? And again, you already mentioned that the FBI knows what you have found. So talk a little bit very briefly on the site mapping and what evidence of a second shooter there is that you found.
So I have several pieces of evidence that are very convincing that there's a second shooter. One of them is it's not 1963 anymore. When we're investigating crimes now, we have a technique called photogrammetry, which means we photograph and video an entire area, but we also scan it with LiDAR. And the computer creates what we call a digital twin. And I have a digital twin of the entire AGR and Butler Farm show. And we can manipulate that and look from different angles and see where snipers can be and where they can't be. And I know exactly where possible snipers who could have shot that hit Donald Trump came from. And I know that the shot that didn't hit Trump, one of the shots that missed him, I know where that bullet ended up. I know where it came from, and it could not have come from AGR. So I have that in addition to other things. I have eyewitness testimony that talks about the bullet that could not have come from AGR. I have photographic and video evidence of the bullet that could not come from AGR. When you see it, you'll say to yourself, there's no way that anybody who looks at this could not see a conspiracy. And if there's a conspiracy, then there's a cover-up.
Well, God bless you for talking about it, and thank God for the protection of President Donald Trump that saved his life. Thank you for being on the show, J.D. Wilcox, the filmmaker behind Who Shot Trump.
Thanks a lot.
That's all the time we have for this episode of American Medicine Today. If you're interested in seeing previous episodes, add American Medicine Today to your favorite streaming devices. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the numbers below. Or you can tweet at Dr. Bonati using the hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.